This time on Poll Hub, the Democrats in Washington have been trying to pass a signature bill to do a whole bunch of things, costing a whole bunch of money, pretty much all year. Breathless reports from the DC political media circus indicate certain success or failure pretty much every hour. But what do Americans think about what's most likely to actually be in any final bill? And will this year-long battle be worth it politically for Democrats in next year's midterms? Then, who do you trust? For a long time, pollsters have asked this question about a myriad of things: government, business, religion, the military, but also about ourselves. New data from Gallup about this very topic is unlikely to brighten your day. But perhaps Lee's fun fact will, so let's get to it. And hi, everybody. Welcome to Poll Hub. I'm J.D. Dapper.
And I'm Barbara Carvalho.
And I'm Lee Maringoff.
We have spent the year watching well, not all year. I mean, it's only October, and they didn't really get going until early February. But we've watched most of this year. The Democrats try to get a couple of big bills, one the infrastructure bill and the other got a lot of different names, but it's a big grab bag of things that they want to accomplish. Been trying all year to get it passed in fits and starts. At any given moment, who knows what the progress is and what's the likelihood of success is. But we thought it would be interesting at this point, since there does seem to be a little bit closer maybe to an end game, or landing the plane, as they like to say in DC. What's in there and what do Americans think of that? So what is it that Americans think about what is most likely, or at least the things that have been discussed as most likely to be in this bill?
Well, I think what's really interesting is when we talk specifics, we often find a lot of consensus on very specific spending items. But when you wrap it all up and talk about a spending plan, especially one that has a significant price tag, and we're not even sure what that really is, the questions have the survey questions have moved along as the dollars, the trillions of dollars that are likely to be spent has gone down. But you put it in the context of a spending plan by a Democratic president, and now all of a sudden you have an incredibly polarized issue. And I don't know how much it's really about the specifics of what's in the plan as it is just about whose plan it is, the large dollar amount, and kind of this, tug of war that goes on in Washington. So 75% of Democrats do prefer a bill that goes further to expand a social safety net and combat climate change, which is how Democrats, think of the issues of healthcare and childcare and severe weather. Independents, as always, because they generally lean either to the Democrat or Republican Party, kind of split down the middle, with 36% saying that lawmakers should pass more, and 32% saying that they should pass something smaller, and then that middle, that 32% saying that they shouldn't pass anything at all. And it's really Republicans, which does makes a lot of sense, because I think it's harder to sell spending plans to Republicans in general, and especially spending plans that have a capital D next to it, with a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress. So 55% of Republicans don't support passing any version of the bill, and 39% support passing a småler version. But
this is all a CNN poll. Just wanted to note this.
Right, I was just going to.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I was just going to. Please, no. You can keep me honest. So it's what happens is, I think it depends upon the question you're asking, particularly when we're asking about spending. And it doesn't have a lot of support except among Democrats as a whole. And even there, you see 75%. I mean, obviously that's a high number, but if it was a Republican bill, there would be much more cohesion behind it among Republicans.
Yeah, Democrats are quick to point out, Barb, that during the Trump years, the Republicans in Congress were less hesitant to run up big deficits. They've become much more fiscal hawkish when the Democrats are in charge. That's not a surprise. I mean, that's sort of came with the turf. I think this speaks to a lot of things. I wrote a list of 119 things that this addresses. So let me just condense that. The Democrats can't even get agreement right now within their own caucus between the framework, which is the broader picture of how much you're going to spend, and the notion that Senator Manchin has said that the devil is in the details. So, in a sense, we're having difficulty getting to the details because we don't even have a broad framework yet. And I think that this is, clearly a reflecting the fact that the Democrats have the slimmest of majorities in the House and the Senate. Couldn't be any slimmer in the Senate, and not much more in the House. And you have a Republican side of the aisle who the Democrats can't in the Senate can't count on lots of votes. 21 Republicans in the Senate, I'm sorry, 41 Republicans in the Senate who represent only 21% of the national population can stop anything that requires 60 votes and be filibuster proof. So the Republicans have, they hold the ace. And then to make matters worse for Schumer and Pelosi and President Biden is, of course, Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema. Manchin, the two Democrats who have been very reluctant to get on board. Manchin, obviously, a representative of the coal industry, not into climate change legislation, and Sinema has definitely gotten into big pharma in terms of her contribution. So you have two senators of the necessary 50 on the reconciliation side of this to are very reluctant without getting the parts that they object to out of the legislation, which I think you're going to see. Those parts are going to be out of the legislation.
Which gets us to the question we asked kind of at the beginning of this, or the last question I asked, I guess, in the open, which is, so does this help Democrats if they ever get anything passed going into 2022, looking ahead? And a friend of the poll, Joel Benenson, did some polling work on this, and there's a story in the Washington Post about this just a couple of days ago, that his polling indicates that the problem with this bill, whatever's in it, is that it doesn't really track what independents are interested in. It tracks more with Democrats. So he found, for instance, in the polling that was done,
and he's a Democrat.
He's Democratic pollster, although he's worked with Neil Newhouse, a GOP firm, on a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. But this polling found that while Democrats in the polls were most interested on raising taxes in the rich and climate change and pandemic, independents were most interested in the economy, inflation and jobs, and then immigration and border security. Those are not, you could argue that economy, inflation, jobs, that kind of stuff, that is addressed in this to some degree in what the Democrats have been talking about. But immigration and border security have been a Fox News thing and no place else, and yet that's what independents, that's their second top item. So is this just a mismatch where Democrats have been playing so hard to the base that they're in danger of passing stuff and then, much like the Affordable Care Act, getting no credit for it?
Yeah, or that it expires. Some of the compromises right now are putting time limits on this legislation so that it expires in 3 years and has to be re-supported and re-voted on 4 years. This is Washington at its worst, because you sort of pass something, you kind of get it through for the moment, and then you come right back in a couple of years and have to fight the war again. But of course, what's Washington thinking about? The 2022 elections, the midterm election. And that's part of what this is all about as well. I found it interesting that the Democrats in the Gallup poll recently, Democratic approval rating of Congress has gone from 55 to 33. And so what we see here is that even though the base is being supported in some of these things and independents and Republicans are on the sideline, as Joe Benenson just indicated, it isn't even selling among Democrats. So, yeah, something's going to get through. I think there will be legislation. I think we're going to have a reconciliation bill. We're going to have an infrastructure bill. We're going to have, Build Back Better bill. It's not going to be, no one's going to like the whole thing. Maybe everybody will like a little tiny bit, and it may even be temporary at that.
Well, certainly all these machinations in Washington don't really do a lot to engender a lot of confidence among Americans, which leads us to our next topic, which is a Gallup poll, and they've been tracking confidence in a variety of different institutions for quite a number of decades. And one of the things that was particularly striking in their latest measure were two numbers. One was how much Americans trust in the legislative branch, and also how much Americans trust in each other. In other words, how much they trust the American people themselves. And the numbers are quite startling, to say the least. If we go back a few decades, right? Well, let me give you the numbers as they stand now. 55% of Americans trust the American people themselves. And at least it's the majority. You kind of figure, all right, we're still
That's a glass half full right there.
No, but it's still on the other side. Hey, look, any public official that has a 55% approval rating would be doing handstands.
Yeah, Biden would be very happy.
But you look at this over time, and even if you look at it, kind of during the Trump administration, that 55 has come down from 62. During the Obama administration, it was at 67. In the early 2000s, it was at 78. And if you go back to the early 70s, now think this is just post Watergate, the number was actually 83 to 86%. So this has been just a tremendous downturn in how we even, think of ourselves. Legislatively, well, Congress probably didn't start all that much better, but back in the early 70s, the number there was 68, 61, kind of to the mid 70s, and now is way below that midfield stripe at 37%. So what does this say about how we can move forward in a democracy if the lack of confidence in these institutions and even ourselves is such at a low ebb?
Too many years of change elections because the American people are so frustrated. Every 2 years, we seem to throw out one guy and put in the next party, either in the White House or in Congress. And that's because it's so frustrated. People are so frustrated. Look, after Watergate, one message coming out of that was the system did ultimately work. Right now, we're waiting to any sign that the system is going to work in pretty much any manner, shape, or form. People are not happy with the way COVID was handled. They're not happy with the policies going on in the Middle East. They're certainly worrying about the economy. Go down the list. There's not a great sense of confidence because we're not getting any results that are satisfying to people.
But Lee, that explains why we've lost faith in the legislature, the presidency, the courts. I mean, we've seen this. We polled these numbers, and the faith in institutions, as we like to call it, has been on the long, steady decline. But we've lost faith, or we're losing faith in ourselves, and that's kind of that. You go back to like de Tocqueville writing about America in the 1800s, and that was the signature thing Europeans found when they came to America, is this like unbridled American self-confidence. They all thought we were crazy, and maybe they're right. But is that disappearing? I mean, that's been the signature thing about America to most of the world for 200 and some odd years.
Yeah, I was hoping we could get to Tocqueville on the next program. However,
you guys obviously remember him well.
yes. There's that loss in trust. Look, we always talk about Thanksgiving, and you're going to have your crazy uncle over for dinner. Now most of the country thinks that the other side, whatever that is, depending on which side you're on, is not just somebody who can be talked to and negotiated with and all that, but they're nuts. I mean,
they're the enemy.
They're the enemy. We've become extremely tribal in our outlook, and that makes for a broken system. And when you have a broken system, people are going to start saying, "Hey, things aren't really working," and that meant that our media is, we have our different ways of listening and watching the news, and the whole thing is really in separate camps right now. We talked about independence earlier. there are not a lot of swing voters out there because people have picked sides. And for better or worse, it's a 50-50 country. And that makes things locked into the kinds of issues we were talking about with what's going on in Washington right now. And that spills over into these two armed camps.
Well, is there anything that can be done, legislatively, politically, in terms of, perhaps how we vote, how we communicate with each other? I know we're all in our separate silos, but are there any solutions that either, Lee, you've studied in political science, or Jay, you've seen in the works of perhaps some of the, local elections?
I just wonder, is it bottom up or top down, Lee? I mean, do you start with repairing ourselves, our faith in ourselves, or do you start with repairing our faith in those institutions?
Well, I think the institutions have come up short, and it's going to be ultimately the responsibility of the American people to pull us all up by the bootstraps. But that's hard.
Well, where does that come from?
Well, look at that Gallup poll. So it ticked up. Like, our faith in the legislature and our faith in ourselves ticked up right after 9/11. I'm not saying that that's the only way, but not 9/11, but a national crisis. Is that what it takes to find our shared story, our commonality?
COVID didn't take us there.
No, it took us further the other direction, right? And so that's, yeah. I mean, is that what we face? Is the next national crisis ends up like COVID, not like 9/11?
But are there structural changes that might be able to,
Lee, you're the political scientist. Please direct us. What can we do?
People talk about a lot of reforms. The problem with the reforms are that they're not going to necessarily get passed. So what's one reform? Eliminate the Electoral College. What's another reform? Let's have a popular vote by president. Let's eliminate the filibuster. There's all kinds of things to kind of like, let's open up the process and take it away from maybe what was originally the founders had in mind, even though that worked kind of well.
None of those things can happen, though, in a current, because none of those things can pass in the way they need to pass.
We can't even get agreement over what happened on January 6th,
right?
When we have all the videotape in the world, and who are you going to believe? Some of the people were saying nothing happened, or your own eyes, and it gives, it does come down to that. I'm reminded, and now I'm going to date myself again, but you may not know what the name of Johnny Carson's original program was before The Tonight Show.
Got me.
I'll give you another 5 seconds. Just there's a lot of crickets out here. Anybody?
This is not before he took over The Tonight Show. He had a show before The Tonight Show.
That's correct.
Because Steve Allen was the host before him.
He had a show with Ed McMahon. And for those of you who this means anything.
So why don't you tell us what it is?
It was called Who Do You Trust?
Oh.
He was onto it. He was onto it. Oh. Anyway, if I might move along to trick or treat season, and I guess that's related to what we're talking about right now, because we may get a trick, but we want a treat.
Well, Halloween's spooky, and these numbers we just talked about are pretty spooky. How about that?
Okay, thank you for that segue. But anyway, so we found some interesting numbers. Our rate producing staff came up with some numbers about whether you're going to do anything of the following in the following months.
For Halloween, right? Is that what it is? Or
for the fall?
Oh, for the fall.
This is a fall poll, and this is not. We often go way back in time for the fun fact. This is this fall, so this is September of this year. What are you doing in the coming months? And this is. Let's make sure we understand. This is through the lens of COVID.
And this the Ipsos Understanding Society poll that is done at different points during the year.
Okay, so I'm going to go from the top to the bottom, and we're all going to say yes or no. Any yeses on decorating the home?
Yes.
No.
Our whole dorm room at college, it's all decorated for Halloween. We do decorations for all the seasons.
All right, I like that.
Does a pumpkin count?
We got one coming up on
Wait a second. Wait, does a pumpkin count? Because I always have pumpkins.
Sure. Yes. Casey, you live in the house kind of in the city, there in a small city. Do you decorate? You got trick-or-treaters and everything, right?
Yes, and my Halloween is bigger than Christmas decorating. We usually do it up pretty big.
That's impressive.
And this year you're doing it?
We're doing it, but we're not doing it as extensively as we did before.
All right. Well, you're part of the 42%. Okay, Lee.
Okay, next, go on a fall hike, 29% nationally. Anybody, any guesses?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, we got 3 here. I'm a no, of course. Too much exercise.
Oh, Casey was a yes, so it's 5 out of
Okay,
6.
too much exercise. Carved pumpkins. Now, Barb, this was related to your Halloween, so
Yeah, I'm a no. I like nice round pumpkins, or sometimes pumpkins that have an interesting shape or a little bit of character, but not carving.
Ashley said she is. Ashley's probably, do you carve funny faces or do you just traditional triangles? And
We'll do a bunch of random things. We'll usually try and do like fun, intricate designs. Sometimes I like to do like cute little, like just more like scenes instead of a face.
oh, cool. An artist. Marcello, do they have pumpkins in Hawaii?
They do actually.
Or do you just use a pineapple?
We're thinking about carving pineapples for this go, but we'll see how that goes.
okay. I want to know a couple more. That down at the bottom, jumping down, go to a corn maze.
Oh, Lee, you say that like you don't even know what that is.
Do you know what it is? I think it's.
Salt Point Turnpike. You drive
Uh-huh.
right by.
If I found one of those, I would try that because I think that's kind of fun.
Have you ever done it though?
No.
I have, but as a kid, so not recently, and I certainly wouldn't be seeking one out right now. But
And Lee, I think you have a last one you're going to pick here. I can see where this is going.
I'm in the last one, and that is skip them all.
No, I thought you were going to go to a haunted house.
Go to a haunted house,
Oh.
11%.
I've done that. They have really cool ones in some places, really like interactive.
yeah,
and,
actually, I was surprised. Go apple picking was only 12%. I thought that was more of a fall activity.
Well, this wasn't a poll
Yes.
of New York and the Hudson Valley.
That's
or
true.
else
We
it
are.
would've
We
been-
yes, yes, we
We're a
are
little
apple
spoiled.
country.
Yeah.
In any case, be safe. It looks like we're going to be able to get some semblance of Halloween this year, unlike last year. Still be careful, but enjoy. Anyway, that does it for now.
That'll do it for Poll Hub this week. Poll Hub is a production of the Marist Poll at Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Mary Griffith is our executive producer. Casey Schaff is our production supervisor.
The Poll Hub team includes Ashley Marcinek and Marcello Bettman.
If you enjoy Poll Hub, please consider leaving a review. Positive reviews help other like-minded listeners find us.
If you'd like to learn more about polling and survey science, check out the Marist Poll Academy, our free online learning portal.
If you have any questions, tweet them at us at Marist Poll. Finally, however, wherever you listen to Poll Hub, there is a subscribe button.
Click it, and the latest episode will be ready for you in your podcasting app as soon as it's released.
We'll see you next time.